It was a quiet morning in Sarajevo. The sun was warm and soft. People walked through the streets. Some were shopping. Some were talking with friends. Some were sitting at cafes, drinking coffee and watching the city wake up. The day felt peaceful, but something was different. There was a strange feeling in the air. It was hard to explain. People whispered to each other. They said, "The Archduke is coming. Franz Ferdinand is visiting today." Franz Ferdinand was the next leader of Austria-Hungary. His wife, Sophie, was with him. People knew them. They were important, but they also looked kind. They were smiling, happy, and waving to the people from their open car. Franz wore his uniform. Sophie wore a beautiful dress. Everyone could see they cared for each other. Some people cheered, some waved flags, but not everyone was happy. In the crowd, there was a young man. His name was Gavrilo Princip. He was only 19 years old. He had a serious face and quiet eyes. In his coat pocket, he had a pistol. His hand was shaking a little. He was nervous. He had waited for this moment. Near him, a little girl named Elira stood with her father. She held a small flag in her hand. "Papa?" she asked. "Who are they?" Her father smiled and said, "That's the Archduke and his wife. They are visiting our city." No one noticed Gavrilo. No one saw what was about to happen. Suddenly, the car turned the wrong way. The driver had made a mistake. They were not supposed to go down that street. Franz looked confused. "Stop!" he shouted. The car stopped right in front of Gavrilo. In that moment, everything changed. Gavrilo stepped forward. His hands were still shaking, but he was ready. He pulled out the gun. He aimed. Bang, one shot. Bang. A second shot. Sophie fell first. Her dress turned red. Then Franz fell beside her. He looked surprised, confused, and in pain. The people began to scream. Some ran. Some stood still, frozen with fear. Elira's father picked her up and ran. Her flag dropped on the ground. The car did not move. It was silent. It was still. Everything had changed in just a few seconds. Guards rushed to the scene. They grabbed Gavrilo. He did not fight. He spoke softly. He said, "Freedom, justice." But there were no cheers for him. Only shock. Only silence. The news spread quickly. It traveled from street to street, city to city. It reached Vienna, the capital of Austria-Hungary. There, Emperor Franz Joseph heard the news. His nephew, the Archduke, was dead. His wife was dead too. He stood in silence. His heart was heavy. He felt sadness, but also anger. His advisors spoke fast. They wanted revenge. They wanted action. Franz Joseph did not speak, but he listened. In the middle of Europe, something had begun. It was not just the death of two people. It was more than that. It was a spark, and soon that spark would grow into a fire. In other parts of the continent, people also felt the change. In Berlin, Paris, and Moscow, leaders read the reports. They sat in quiet rooms. Their faces were serious. Their eyes were full of worry. They did not know what would happen next, but they knew it would be big. In Sarajevo, the streets became quiet again. Shops closed. Families stayed inside. Soldiers walked slowly through the city. The sound of their boots echoed on the empty roads. The city was not the same. Where the car had stopped, there were only dark stains now. The flag Elira dropped was gone, but she would always remember the screams, the fear, and the feeling that something terrible had happened. That day in Sarajevo, a bullet changed the world. People did not know it yet, but this small moment would lead to something much bigger. It would lead to a war. The world was waking up to a new and dangerous time. And it all started with a simple mistake, a turn down the wrong street and 2 shots that shook the earth. The day the world changed had begun. The news of the Archduke's death reached Vienna very quickly. The people were shocked, many were sad, many were afraid. Inside the royal palace, everything was quiet, but the silence was heavy. Emperor Franz Joseph sat alone in his large room. He looked out the window. His eyes were tired. He had lost many people before, but this was different. Franz Ferdinand was his nephew. He was also the future of the empire. Now he was gone. Franz Joseph held the letter in his hand. The words were short and clear. "The Archduke is dead, shot in Sarajevo." He closed his eyes. He could still see the boy Franz used to be, but that boy was no more. The emperor's face was strong, but inside his heart was full of pain. His advisors came into the room. They were angry. "This is an attack on the empire," one of them said. "We must act." "Serbia must pay," said another. Franz Joseph listened. He said nothing, but his silence did not mean peace. His silence was the beginning of something dark. Far away in Berlin, Kaiser Wilhelm II read the same news. He was tall and proud. He loved power. He wanted the world to respect Germany. When he heard that Austria-Hungary needed help, he gave his answer quickly. "We will stand by you," he said, "no matter what." This was the blank check. It was not a real check, but a promise of full support, no questions asked. Wilhelm smiled when he said those words. But inside, there was a small voice. The voice asked, "Is this wise? Is this safe?" He pushed the thought away. He believed in strength. He believed in action. He believed this was the right thing to do. In the corner of the room stood a young advisor. His name was Emil. He did not speak much. He was smart and quiet. He watched everything. He listened to the excitement in the room. But he felt something different. Worry. He knew that promises could become problems. He knew that small fires could grow fast, and this fire was already spreading. In Serbia, the leaders were scared. They had heard the news too. They knew Austria-Hungary was angry. Then came the letter. It was a long list of demands. Some parts were possible, but others were too much. Austria-Hungary wanted control over Serbian police, courts, and even their military. It was like asking Serbia to give up its freedom. The Serbian Prime Minister read the letter many times. "We cannot agree to this," he said. "If we do, we lose our country. But if we say no, they will attack." The room was full of silence. It was a hard choice. In the end, Serbia said yes to most of the demands. But they said no to the ones that would take away their independence. In Russia, Tsar Nicholas II walked through the cold halls of his palace. He was a quiet man. He loved his country. He also loved peace. But Serbia was Russia's friend. They were both Slavic nations. There was a deep connection between them. Nicholas felt the pressure. His generals said, "We must protect Serbia. If we don't, we will look weak." Nicholas thought about his people. He thought about his wife and children. He thought about war. He didn't want it, but he didn't want to look afraid either. Finally, he said, "We will begin to prepare. We will not attack, but we must be ready." All across Europe, leaders were making decisions. Some chose war. Some hoped for peace. But the fire was growing. It started in one city, with one bullet. Now it burned in every royal palace, in every capital. The promises made in peace were now chains. Each country was tied to another. Each leader waited to see who would move first. In a small village in Russia, an old farmer sat by the fire. He listened to the news on the radio. His wife gave him tea. He looked out the window at the snow. "It has begun," he said softly. "The world is changing." The fire beneath the thrones was now rising, and no one could stop it. The sky over Belgium was gray. Clouds covered the sun. Rain fell softly on the streets and fields. But something louder than the rain was coming. It was the sound of boots. Thousands of German soldiers were marching into Belgium. They were moving fast. They wanted to reach France, but Belgium stood in their way. Belgium was a small country. Its army was not large, but its people were strong and brave. In the city of Liège, soldiers and citizens prepared to defend their home. One of them was Captain Henri. Before the war, Henri was a school teacher. He loved books and children. Now, he wore a uniform and carried a gun. The schools were closed. The children were sent away for safety. But before they left, Henri wrote them letters. In each letter he said, "Be strong, be kind, believe in your country." He gave the letters to the children with a smile, even though his heart was heavy. The German army had powerful weapons. They had big cannons that made the ground shake. But the Belgians did not run. They fought back with everything they had. They used walls, bridges, and even trees to slow the enemy. In every town, people helped. Some gave food. Some gave water. Some helped carry messages in secret. The whole country was working together. Far away in England, a young man named Thomas stood in line at a train station. He had just joined the army. His uniform was new. His boots were clean. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were strong. He hugged his mother and kissed his little sister. He also said goodbye to his dog. "I'll be home for Christmas," he said. His mother smiled, but her eyes were full of tears. On the train, Thomas met other young soldiers. They talked, they laughed, they shared stories, they dreamed of being heroes. Many of them had never left their town before. Now, they were on their way to France. They thought the war would be quick. But when they arrived, everything changed. The trenches were long, deep holes in the ground. They were full of mud and water. Rats ran around. The air smelled bad. The nights were cold. The sounds of guns and bombs never stopped. Thomas looked around. He did not see glory. He saw fear and pain. Still, there were small moments of hope. One day, Thomas received a letter from home. His little sister had drawn a picture of him. In the drawing, he was smiling and holding a flag. He folded the paper and kept it in his pocket. Another soldier, named Jack, gave him a piece of chocolate. "My wife sent it," Jack said. They broke the piece and shared it with others. For a few minutes, they were not soldiers. They were just young men, remembering home. The captain told them, "Tomorrow we move forward." No one spoke. They knew what that meant. Some of them would not return. That night, Thomas wrote a letter. It was slow and careful. His hands were cold. "Dear Mum," he wrote, "I hope you are well. I am trying to be brave. I miss you. I miss the smell of home, the food, and your hugs. If I don't come back, please know I tried to do the right thing. I fought with good men. I thought of you every day. Love, Thomas." He folded the letter and placed it inside his coat. The next morning, the sky was still gray. The mud was deep. The wind was sharp. Thomas stood with Jack and the others. Their boots were wet. Their faces were pale. But they were ready. They moved forward, step by step, into the unknown. They did not move for power. They did not move for glory. They moved for each other, for home, for hope. In every country there were stories like Thomas's, young men with boots on muddy roads, old men writing letters they might never send, mothers waiting for sons, children holding pictures, people holding on to love in a time of fear. This was not just a war of armies. It was a war of hearts. And in those hearts, there was bravery. Quiet, steady, human bravery. Even in the darkest days, that bravery lived on. Now we have come to the end of this powerful story. We began in the peaceful streets of Sarajevo, with a royal couple smiling and waving to the crowd. We saw a young man, Gavrilo, make a choice that would shake the world. We watched leaders, emperors, and kings make decisions from their palaces, each word and promise pulling the world closer to war. And then we followed brave soldiers, like Thomas and Captain Henri, who stepped into the mud and the fire, not for fame, but for each other. This story was not only about war, it was about people, ordinary people. We saw letters written with shaking hands, goodbyes said with quiet tears, and courage found in the darkest places. We met mothers, teachers, children, and soldiers. Each one showed us what it means to be human. The world of 1914 was very different from today, but the feelings are the same. Fear, love, hope, pain, and courage. These are things we all understand, no matter what language we speak. That is why this story can still teach us something important. So, what can we learn from this story? We learn that even small actions can have big effects. One wrong turn on a street, one angry decision, one kind letter, one brave step forward. Everything we do matters. Every word we speak, every promise we keep, and every moment we choose peace over hate. In today's world, we still see conflict and fear, but we can choose differently. We can choose kindness, understanding, and courage. We can listen to each other. We can write our own letters of hope. We can stand up, not with weapons, but with words and care. Thank you for listening to this story. By staying with us, you have not only learned about history, you have also improved your English. You have listened, imagined, and understood. That is amazing progress. Now, here is a fun question to test your memory. Why did Captain Henri write letters before the children left town? A. Because he wanted to teach them how to write. B. Because he wanted to give them courage and hope. Comment your answer A or B below. We'll check how many of you remember the story well. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us grow and make more beautiful stories for you. We are just getting started, and your love gives us the strength to continue. If you'd like to help us create more free and high-quality English content, please consider donating. Making these stories takes time and care. In the beginning, it's hard to keep going without help. But we do it for you, because we believe in helping people learn English through meaningful stories. Thank you again. You are not just learning English, you are growing as a person with every story you hear. See you in the next episode.